Um, what we want to do is invite you to talk to us today. Jay and I are going to work with you guys to talk to us about what all this stuff means to you. Okay? How does this show up in an organization? And the C word, why do we bother with culture? Any of you have kids and or nephews or nieces that, like the little kids that came in earlier? When they come in, don't they say to you, why is such and such? Now what happens when you answer them? What do they say? Why? And then when you tell them that, what do they say? Why? Because they want to know the ultimate set of answers to the ultimate set of questions, right? So why do we want to mess around with this culture stuff? Okay? Brian talked about it, said it's important. Why does it matter to us? And how does it show up? So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk to you a little bit about that, and we're going to ask you to talk back to us. So Jay and I are going to kind of do this back and forth together. You've got some clickers there on your table. We're going to use those. You're going to get a chance to chime in. You're going to get a chance to talk. Okay? So, oops. So, from our very first speaker this morning, talked about what we're here to do. Your safety, your mobility, your economic opportunity. You, your neighbors, people who come through the state, okay? They need to know what it is we're here to do, okay? That's what mission is. What are we here to do? Your safety, your mobility, your economic opportunity. Okay? Out of that, we define some fairly simple goals. Okay? Our transportation system is safe. Our transportation system is in good condition. It's unrestricted. Our services are timely and cost-effective. And our users are satisfied with ITD's services. Now, some of you may know a guy by the name of Bob Koberlin. Okay? So I get a note from Bob the other day. Okay? He says, we did something a few years ago. We put in some weather instrument stations. Okay? 2010, 2011, right in there. Okay? Tells us what the road conditions are like. 33 stations, 885 road miles, something like that. In 2010, 5 fatalities in winter driving conditions. After they're installed in 2011, 1. 2012, 0. Now, Dr. Tom just talked to us about results. Now that strikes me as results. Okay? There's a pretty good ROI, return on investment, for what we spent for that RWIS. Boy, I tell you, I got more alphabet soup going on than you can imagine. There's how the rubber met the road. Simple investment. Guys monitor it. You guys know what to do with the roads. Reduces fatalities. Our transportation system is safe. That's how that connects. Now, who had the bright idea to figure that out and go get that? One of you guys. Okay? Hats off to Bob for telling us about that. So, what we want to know from your tables a little bit is, what are the factors and conditions in Idaho that make achieving the mission and the goals we just saw challenging? What are the factors and conditions in Idaho and in the U.S. that make achieving that mission challenging? That's not a rhetorical question. I'd really like an answer.
Money.
Funding. Who said that? Did you say that? Did you say funding? Who said funding? He said funding. Give this guy, he said funding, didn't he? Who said funding? You said funding? There you go. There's thanks. There's $5 at Goodwood's. Enjoy that, okay? All right? What else makes it tough? What kind of funding? Were we having trouble getting a highway bill passed in Congress? Okay, how many years have they kicked that can down the road? Doesn't look like they're going to get it done this year, does it? So we're going to struggle again, aren't we? Okay, what are some of the other challenges? Give that man. Tell me a little bit about public indifference. Like what? Here, I'll give it to him. He's about to speak up. Here you go. Tell us about public indifference.
Most people, there's been news articles where, and a recent poll where most people say the roads are in good conditions. We don't need more money to improve the roads.
Don't need to spend the money. It's already good enough, and so on. But you guys know better, don't you? Because you know what it takes to put that there in the first place. Right? Okay. Indifference, where, Jay? Right here. Right down here. Somebody? Okay.
It's been 5 minutes since I said something, so I have to.
Okay.
Recruiting, developing, and retaining skilled staff is difficult in the public sector because of the wage differential.
Okay.
So there's a big challenge for us, Jim.
So it's tough to find good talent. I better turn that off. Sorry. It's tough recruiting, okay? It's tough to recruit those kinds of people. So what are we going to do to overcome that? This is where culture comes into play. Culture is a vehicle. Culture is not something that we do for itself. We don't go to blue to be blue. Okay? We go because the mission and goals merely define the direction. Okay? The legislature sets the direction, tells us where we're going to go, what we're going to do. Our culture defines the way we expect to get there. Now, if this is an organization where people enjoy the way that they get there and look forward to coming to work every day, will it be easier to recruit people? Okay? Will it be easier to find ways to stretch the dollars that aren't coming from Congress? Will it be easier to find better solutions? Okay? So, if you look down in the lower corner of the slide over there, you see all that blue. That was the ideal culture that you said, this April, you said, this is how we want to expect each other to get there. So here's the problem. You own this. This is the way you want to get there. This is what you want to do. Okay? So Dr. Tom just left and said, there's no team in owning a project. Well, each one of you gets to own how we get to that set of behaviors within ITD. You get to do that. So, if we have challenging times, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any easier soon, right? okay, then we need a powerful culture. We need a constructive culture that focuses on problem solving and accountability. Now, we keep talking about accountability like it's the boogeyman. Do people like getting credit when they did something right? That's accountability, folks. So accountability is, it's like what Dr. Tom said about, you don't really have to do anything about disciplining people, you just follow instructions. Well, if you follow instructions and somebody did a good job, all you got to do is say, way to go. Outstanding. That's accountability. Now, we also have to follow instructions when they tell us they don't really want to work here. Okay? So we have to problem solve. We have to be accountable. We have to have internal motivation. That's got to come from within to achieve high quality. You have to decide this matters. Okay? Just because there's public apathy doesn't mean we don't need to make sure that the roads are right. Okay? Being supportive, constructive, and open. By the way, is there like an enormous, huge pit behind that word open? What does open mean? Willing to implement something that somebody puts forth. Excuse me, let me scoot in here. Okay? Willing to implement something. Yes, sure. What else do you have to be willing to do, though?
Accept the risk.
You got to accept the risk. Got to be vulnerable. Who said vulnerable? Who said vulnerable? He's right. Get that guy. Okay? You got to be vulnerable. You've got to be willing. When open also means telling it as it is. Now, that doesn't mean you bludgeon people with your truth. Okay? But it does mean telling them, you're my friend, you got bad breath, I got to help you with this. Maybe you don't do it in front of everybody, you take them off to the side and say, hey, pal. But open is also being willing to tell all that's going on. Now, right now, there are times when we are not open with one another inside our culture. But you said you want it to be that way. So what are you going to do about it? Supportive, constructive, and open. Okay, so you can't beat them to death, but you got to tell them. I really need more from you. I need you to come to the table. I need more out of you on this. This isn't your best work. I know you have better work inside you. I got to have it. We've got to have it. The consequences are that we don't get to stretch, we don't get to do. Okay, Jay, we're going to do some clicker work.
So I know one of the main reasons that I usually get invited back to ITD is because I'm the guy with the clickers. But I'll take it and come anyway. So grab your clicker. They're a great way to get feedback from you immediately. They're very easy to use. We're going to ask you a multiple choice question. You're going to respond by pressing the letter or the number that corresponds to the answer. If you change your mind while the poll is open, you can vote. You can change your vote. You can submit a different answer. However, you can't stack the deck by voting multiple times. The computer only takes one response from each clicker. So Jim's done a good job of setting up both the challenges that we face in terms of ITD's mission and goals, and you all just describing some of those challenges both in the state and in the country, and then providing some background and context for what we mean by a constructive culture. So let's just begin at the beginning with the people in the room. How much do you agree or disagree with this statement? I believe people at ITD should be constructive. Go ahead and click in. You'll see at the bottom as the computer tabulates, you should see a little green light flash on your clicker. If nothing flashes, try pressing harder with your fingernail. The keyboards are kind of cheap. All right, so everybody click in. We're up to 141, 2. Make sure you get your answer in. Going. All right, let's see what you said. 78% say they strongly agree. 22% somewhat agree. We put those together, we're just at about 100%. Why is it important to ask a question like, should we do something? Saying we should do something is not the same as saying that we are doing it, but it's a start. We all know we should floss our teeth every day, but we all don't do it. But saying that we should do something allows us permission to move forward. Now, we asked this same question of a random sample of ITD workers across the entire organization, and 86% agreed. And this was over a year ago. We're going to repeat this survey this fall. We'll see how it's changed. But what you want to take from that 86% is that it gives you permission. If you believe this is something we should do, you should also know that the overwhelming majority of everybody else agrees with you. Now, that's not 100%. And in a large sample, you're often not going to get 100%. But it means that often the silent majority may be much bigger than if you hear an opposing vocal minority. So you need to remember that, yes, overwhelmingly, ITD employees agree that ITD should be constructive. That also came out in the assessment with Jim's group around the ideal culture. Constructive culture was not something that was handed and said the organization shall be this way. Rather, the organization asked, what would be the ideal culture to achieve the results that we need to achieve? And overwhelmingly, people responded a constructive culture was that culture. So it all starts to align, and that's what you want to realize is that even though where you may see opposition with individuals, overwhelmingly people have a sense that this is the direction to go.
Okay, now how does this rubber meet the road? We're gonna ask some people to tell us some stories of how they've gotten results through constructive behaviors. Dr. Tom gave you that pyramid. Okay, so we're talking about actions. So I think the first one we should share a little story about and give a shout out to somebody who's not here right now, who's very important to all of us, a guy by the name of Jeff Stratton. Okay, Jeff's fighting and appears to be getting better on a very, very tough battle with cancer. Okay, and so this story is how Jeff translated what the boss said we ought to do. Okay, this morning earlier you heard several times the kinds of rewards that had been given to ITD. And Brian wanted to reflect the credit on the people who'd been doing the work. So he turned to Jeff and he said, Jeff, I need to do something here where we celebrate our victories, celebrate our achievements, celebrate what we've done. So Jeff and Molly McCarty in his absence and all of the people in the communications department, those invisible people who are around you all the time, promoting what you do, and I want to recognize them right now, they set up a mock awards, an Academy Awards with a red carpet and the entire full 9 yards. Now, people who say they went there said it was one of the coolest things that they'd ever seen, and they sure hope that it gets done again. So it's in that spirit of celebrating that we think about this. And we're going to tell stories about it. Oh. Okay, so our first one is Tyler Zundel from ETS. He's going to tell us a little bit of story about new computer purchasing guidelines.
Thanks,
Tyler?
Jim. Thanks, Jim.
You bet.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tyler Zundel. I am responsible for managing the planning and governance functions within ETS, Enterprise Technology Services at headquarters. And we're part of the Division of Administration.
Just lift it up a little bit more.
A little bit more. Can you hear me now? One of the responsibilities I have is to manage the list of approved computing equipment, printers, monitors, desktop and laptop PCs. About 4 weeks ago, I took a phone call from a headquarters supply services person, somebody that works for my colleague Michelle here, and she said, Tyler, I'm really concerned about how many of these speakers I have to throw away every month. It seems like we're throwing away dozens and dozens of pairs of these computer speakers every month. In many cases, they're not even unwrapped. They haven't ever been plugged into anything. And she asked me if it would be possible that we simply not ship the speakers with the computers that we deploy. And it seemed reasonable, and it seemed an opportunity for cost savings to me, so I asked the IT manager who works for me, Randy Bristol, who's responsible for managing our service center, to look into it. She made a phone call to our supplier and quickly determined that it'd be really simple to pull the standard speaker deployment out of the computers that we ship. And we can also add them as a line item on our order form. So for those of us that do want speakers, we can pick them up. She also spoke with her staff, who are responsible for many of the deployments of these devices within the headquarters. And one of her senior IT services folks has been thinking about this and actually had a plan in mind. But it turns out that she hadn't done anything with it because she didn't know if it was a priority or not. She didn't know that it would be okay for her to bring this up. But here she had this plan in her head for how to go find out whether our customers would be accepting or willing to use computers without speakers on them, and find out just what the acceptance or tolerance was. Within about 20 minutes, this employee polled roughly 80 people within the department, IT staff within the districts, and administrative assistants across the entire geographic distribution of ITD. The overwhelming response was, please don't ship us any more speakers. How many of you have a mess of tangle of cables on top of your desktop and there's speakers in there somewhere that you've never used? Or how many of you have heard, what does the fox say, one too many times from a neighbor? We work in a highly productive environment where having loud speakers playing music at your desk just doesn't seem to work. What we see at headquarters is people bringing in their own little sets of earbuds and plugging them in to listen to their music or stream Pandora. We will find you on the WebSense reports for that, by the way. Another one of Michelle's folks, Danny Tanatabuth, reached out to our supplier and quickly got an updated quote for the desktop PCs. And it turns out these speakers are $18 a pop. And I estimate that we replace around 500 of these PCs on an annual basis, so that's $9,000 of potential cost savings right there. And I know that's important. Shannon was really glad to see that. She quickly wrote it down onto a note, and it's been something that we're touting as an opportunity. But I think the bigger picture here is how quickly we were able to resolve a concern of one of our internal customers. When Carrie reached out to me, it was obvious to me that as a taxpayer, she hated seeing all that money going into the trash dumpster. And within a couple of days, we had our standard list of equipment updated so that people could choose to get speakers if they want them or not. And by the way, we intend to add additional line items on there for earbuds and for head hugger headphones coming up in the near future, so keep your eyes peeled for that exciting announcement. But within a few minutes, we determined that some people within ETS had already thought about this. And they had already come up with an idea, but it was just sitting there waiting, gathering dust, waiting for someone to kind of kick it off. And I was really impressed with how quickly this all unfolded. And I think it's a really good example of the collaborative culture that we're driving towards, certainly within the Division of Administration, Jim.
So I understand that Shannon, when I asked Shannon for a story, Shannon told me that she said this stuff had been implemented before I even heard about it. So a little round of applause for Tyler. Okay, so what do you all think about that? Jay's got the question up for you. What constructive behaviors were demonstrated in the story?
Go ahead, click in.
Just one answer, Jay?
Yes. Sorry, you can only pick one. This forces you to pick the top one. Everybody click in. A few seconds. All right, let's see what you thought.
Interesting spread. Internal motivation to achieve high quality. Effective work groups, being supportive, constructive, and open. Okay? All of them fit, including the number one. So there's an even spread there. There were a lot of different behaviors going on inside one simple thing to save $9,000, $10,000 a year that turns into something we can use somewhere else. Okay? Simple way of getting results. So now we're going to tell a story about 71,000 titles and counting. Marvin White from DMV.
Thank you. Just to let you know, when they first invited me to speak, which was just like Tuesday of last week, they said you have to say something and you need to write it out. I got a little wordy. They truncated it down. I'm going to read it to you because I haven't memorized it. First, let me say that I'm honored to be invited to speak here today. It really is an honor to be here. As mentioned, my name's Marvin White. I'm a technical record specialist in the Vehicle Services Department at the DMV, and I work with a team of 12 people when it's fully staffed. I came to ITD about the same time that Director Ness did, and one of the department's initiatives at that time was the emphasis on corporate culture. For the 10 years prior, I'd been working mostly in the PC industry, and it was one of the industries that had really embraced the whole corporate culture, and so I had a really good introduction to it and saw how well it worked. We at the DMV were working on modernization, and we understand that that has a lot more to do, it's a lot more involved than just our software and our hardware. Our culture has to come along with it because new software, new hardware wouldn't do as much good if the people didn't work well together. One function of our vehicle services section is to review vehicle titles for completeness and accuracy and issue them to customers in a timely manner, usually within 7-day turnaround. To accomplish this, we've got 3 teams of title examiners that review titles that have come to us from all the counties in the state. And through process changes, we'd evolved from a 3-region system into a central system, so that rather than each of the 3 teams supporting a specific region of the state and just doing that title work and answering those phone calls, we went to a central system so that the people would actually pull their work from one central location, and it could be from anywhere in the state. So we encountered something of a perfect storm this summer with the implementation of process changes, staff shortages due to retirements, vacations, short-term and long-term sick leave, and combined with record-setting title applications for us to review. And our pool of title applications grew from 5,000 to 20,000. Our team has a meeting every month. We've done this for as long as I've been there, with or without our supervisor. That's our task. So whoever's assigned as our lead worker facilitates the meeting. Our supervisor, Barbara, wasn't available for this meeting when we had it, but the general consensus at the meeting was that we weren't happy with the results of the title changes, the process changes. We never had this long of a turnaround time. We were at, was it 17 days? We tried to keep it at 7. And we'd never had this much of a backlog. And when we were doing regions, our team never ran a backlog. We just didn't. The focal point of the meeting was the current titling procedures, its strengths, its weaknesses, and what we as a team could do to improve output, improve our morale while maintaining the high degree of customer service that we're used to giving. We determined what we were able to do, taking into account consideration the individual strengths of the team members, the specialty areas that they have to deal with. We developed our proposals, agreed as a team to adhere to them, forwarded them to our supervisor, and implemented them. We carried our best practices forward and we put them to use as best we could to ease our frustration, bolster our morale, and get the titles out the door. It was business as usual for us. It's just what we do. What begs the question, though, is where does a team get the courage to say, this isn't working, it's broken, it needs to be fixed, and then just go out on their own and fix it? First and foremost, we're a team of highly motivated individuals. We exceed what's expected, and we give more than is asked because we're driven to do so, and we gain satisfaction from meeting the challenge. Why? I don't know. I can't tell you. It's just what we do. Second, it's leadership. I believe it was Dr. Alan Zimmerman who said, a boss creates fear, a leader creates courage. Good leadership can empower a ragtag team of underachievers to shine. Poor leadership can render a team of top performers virtually ineffective. You put good leadership together with a team that's driven to excel, and good things are bound to happen. Our team has had 2 different supervisors as I've been there. One supervisor who helped teach me about titles, and one supervisor whom I helped teach about titles. 2 completely different styles of management from 2 completely different areas, and we excelled under both. The 3 most important things they had in common were transparency, integrity, and approachability. We always knew where we stood as a team and as individual members. Information flowed freely up and down, and when they said they were going to do something, we could count on it being done. We trusted them, and they trusted us. We were also empowered by leaders who had confidence in our ability to do what we do best, and they didn't let us forget it. The third factor that moved our team from relative obscurity to being recognized all the way up to the director's desk was the shift in the corporate culture at ITD that went along with modernization. Change and innovation are no longer things to be feared or ignored. They're actively sought out and encouraged. We didn't do anything new or different as a team. We just did what we always done, did what we do best. We didn't consider this until just recently. I was just talking with the team yesterday, but it seems that we'd achieved the department's goal of being shifted towards the blue a long time ago. Just our actions show it. We just needed to wait for the corporate culture to catch up. And it has. Our team meeting and the changes we implemented for our unit resulted in improved productivity, improved morale, and improved processes, contributing to the largest volume of titles processed in ITD's history. Over 71,000 titles were issued in the month of July. So we accomplished our primary goals. Morale is up, titles are moving out the door, and customers are happy. Of course, our team didn't issue all 71,000 titles on our own, so that brings me to our secondary goal, which was to inspire others. I think we can say mission accomplished on that one. I'll leave you with a final quote from Dr. Alan Zimmerman. The more you believe in others, the more they will do to prove you right. Our leaders believed in us, fostered a culture that empowered us, and I believe we proved them right.
Well done. So, Alan, is this always the way it's been?
Is this on?
It's
Oh, just yell? All right, thanks for that mentoring. Appreciate that. No, that is not the way it has always been. The path for us began with the leadership impact assessment that we all got. I got one. In fact, I've had 2 now, and actually looking forward to my 3rd, I think this fall. And I say that sincerely. This is a great journey for us, and I see Brian in the back there, and I want to thank him personally for, you know, you had the puzzle up here. For me, the most important thing was the change in the culture. You did that. You made that possible. And for me, that makes all the rest of it possible too. Back to my assessment. I've been at ITD for 28 years at the time I got my last leadership impact assessment. I was expecting marvelous things to be said. They were not. My expectations were largely unmet. I had some things to do. I committed to change. A big part of that change was a recognition that I had to involve my team, my direct reports in a better and different way. We met together in February of this year. I had all of my direct reports in the room except probably Tammy. Tammy's here someplace. Tammy had to answer phones. Sorry. I should have had you there. And these are people of courage and integrity, and they stripped me bare. It was a very tough thing for me. But I committed to change. And I was motivated to change. And a large part of that, my people talked to me about the use of my daddy voice. Maybe some of you have that, I don't know. Or a mommy voice. They also talked to me about the use of these silly glasses that sometimes in moments of passion I might chuck down. I have stopped doing that. The most important thing that they talked to me about was, Alan, when we come into you with a problem, we don't need you to solve it. We're coming in to you for advice and counsel, and that's what I give. The business process improvements that Amy Smith initiated in the vehicle services section have been going very well. I don't know what they all are. I've let them run it. I've let them implement it. The results have been astonishing. We had, Marvin, you didn't sell this near hard enough. We had the biggest month in the biggest year we've ever had. We issued 71,000 titles in the month of July. To put that into perspective, we ask our people to average about 14 titles per hour. So that was, in that month, about 2.5 years worth of one man doing it. This is huge. This was, and my hat is off to that team, and I applaud their efforts. They did this. Marvin took his own hat off to himself. We have wonderful people. We just need to turn them loose to perform. Thank you very much.
You bet. So one of the tables who'd like to speak up and talk about how does this story connect with ITD's mission? Got a table wants to speak up on that? All right, terrific. Here you go.
Good morning. My name is Walter Burnside. I'm on a District 4 Operations Manager. We had a great discussion here at the table talking about the first question, how does the story connect with ITD's mission and goals? And a lot of that just played into Alan's demonstration of how he is meeting the affiliative part of our blue culture and moving towards the items in the blue. ITD's mission and goals, we're not quite there yet. We're on this journey, and I think that's what we heard at the table. We all talked about, as supervisors and managers, some of the fears that come with letting go, like Alan did, some of the expectations and hopes of our teams, and being willing to let them do it and not be leading them, but behind them, cheering them on. I think all of us recognize that those are giant steps for leaders and managers, supervisors to take, and that it takes some faith in the system. And the other thing we said, the system is different now than it was before, and some of us are long timers, so we know that. So we thought it was very good, and that we're connecting, and we're getting on to what is the new culture at ITD.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Here from another table.
I'm Ed Belay. I'm district engineer in Pocatello. Really happy to be working with this group. We rock. Yeah. So anyway, we felt really like Marvin and Alan, you guys connected directly with the ITD strategic plan through excellent customer service, right? And more importantly, developing employees. We were especially impressed, Marvin, with you by the fact that you could have found 5,000 reasons you couldn't do it. We could even elucidate some of them. We thought it was really fantastic that you didn't take that tack and that you said instead, how do we get to a solution? And we thought it was really great that, Alan, you dropped the how and let Marvin on the how, right? So what, not how, and the results kind of speak for themselves, right? 71,000 titles in a month, that's fantastic, so nice job, you guys.
Okay, thanks. So let's hear from a table about somebody who maybe knows Alan a little bit. How did Alan's perspective on a constructive culture shift? Got a table? Oh, there we go.
You should never give up the mic, Jim. I'm Jim Carpenter. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. And one of the things I get to do on Mondays is play golf with Alan. Alan and I are not only in the same league, but I drag him around the course. Pretty close, right? No, I really thought this, and I mentioned it to our table here, and we talked about it. Alan's perspective on who Alan was and his willingness to take that constructive approach, I have seen that develop over the last 4 or 5 months. Alan's talked to me about, when he first got that evaluation of where he was at, instead of taking an approach that, boy, this is wrong, this is the wrong way, they missed me, Alan looked at how could he find something out of that. I was impressed with Alan's view and impressed with his results. And I'll tell you what, there's a huge change in that guy from doing that. So you're looking at the Alan 2.0.
Did it help your golf game, Alan?
Not last night.
Not last night. Well, and sometimes, Dr. Tom was talking about how our thoughts and our beliefs change our actions. It does, but sometimes it takes a little while. Let's talk. That's a wonderful way to segue into highways, because highways is a lot of what we do at ITD. And Jason, where's Jason? Jason, I'd like to hear a little bit from Jason. He's got a kind of an interesting story to tell us about leadership and leadership development. Go ahead, Jason.
I'm Jason Minsker. I'm the operations engineer for District 1. I'd like to talk a little bit about our maintenance crew up in Bonners Ferry. George Schutz is our foreman up there. And this past winter, he went through some pretty hard family trials. And he wasn't able to be at work as much as he wanted to be. And his crew kind of fell apart a little bit. And when he came back, and it was really awesome. He came to me and he said, hey, I want to make some changes. I keep hearing about the horizontal career path. Can we implement it early? Can we please try something different? So we talked for several weeks on how to implement leadership change within his crew. And he'd been talking with his people individually, and what he decided was to basically assign projects to the best qualified person on his crew. Instead of always having the lead worker assign assignments, he wanted to handpick people for different tasks and to see if they could grow. So what he decided, he implemented it starting in June, and his second week, a TT by the name of Grant Leader is a very shy leader. His job was to do guardrail replacement. A lot of people think, oh, no big deal, you just get some guardrail going and we'll just go out and replace it. Well, his first day was a little rough. But the crew stood behind him and said, okay, let's do it this way and this way. They started developing different ways to do that same task. Grant came to George and said, hey, you know what? I don't know if I can do this. And George told him, said, hey, we got your back. You got the support of management and ITD. Just do it. That second day was Grant's best day. He came to work. Within 5 minutes, he had his whole crew lined out. And guess what? He grew. And what's so exciting is everyone on that crew, and Bob Buckner's here, he's sitting up front with Scott, and I was talking to him last night about what's the difference. He goes, you know what, we respect each other more. We now know how it feels to be in the leadership role, and it's not exactly that easy. And he goes, their crew is growing by leaps and bounds, and we've torn down the barriers of withholding information. Because it is now our benefit to build up our team. And that's what's so exciting about George Schutz willing to step out on a limb and implement something that we're not quite there yet. And I think he's a role model for all of District 1.
All right. That's a great story. Thank you, Jason. Okay, start your clickers. I'm going to hand this back to Jay for a while.
So what do you think? Click in the top constructive behavior maybe you heard in that story. You're getting faster, that's good. All right, let's see what you thought. So this time being supportive, constructive, and open led the group, but all of them still had some. So clearly you can see elements from his story of the being supportive, constructive, and open. Jim talked at the beginning about open, small word, but has a huge aspect to it. We have to be courageous to be open. We have to be open to new ideas, open to be challenged, all those different aspects, and you could hear that from that story. So good. So it's also interesting to note that even in one story, we see all those behaviors coming together. And that is very much why constructive culture doesn't just have one simple thing. I mean, it's complex. There are many aspects to it. And we can see all those dimensions coming together in all of these stories. Another aspect that came up, I think, in Jason's stories was an aspect of expectation. Creating an expectation that if given this openness, folks would behave in a certain way. So I have another clicker question. In our survey that we did last year, what percentage of ITD employees report their supervisor expects them to be constructive? What do you think? What percentage of ITD employees reported that their supervisor expects them to be constructive? A few seconds, click in. All right. So the one that 41 to 60% was what was the largest one, but we actually have a variety of responses across the room. What the survey actually said was 81%. Another thing that came out was that people were much more likely to be engaging in constructive behaviors as they reported that their supervisor expected them to be. So those of you who are in the room who are supervisors, you can recognize one thing is a lot of employees are reporting that this is becoming an expectation. So that also gives you permission as a supervisor to create that same expectation with those that you supervise. But also just this element of creating an expectation and how even if we're not necessarily a supervisor, as Dr. Tom was talking about, our peer accountability and the expectations that we create with our peers as well, and sort of how the overwhelming majority across ITD are really starting to shift and have those expectations. And that becomes another important aspect of bringing forth the culture, is creating that sense of, yes, this is who we are and what we expect. So just an opportunity to check in again with how we're seeing things and how we're measuring things when we ask folks in surveys. All right, let's go to another story.
Before we leave that, I just want to reinforce, the military guys use a phrase called force multiplier. Well, you as leaders have an opportunity to have a force multiplier, because if you exhibit constructive behavior and expect it of others, they are much more likely to exhibit it and to expect it of others around them as well. So you have an automatic opportunity to be a force multiplier as a leader in creating the culture that you say you want. So we're going to talk about storms now for a second. We're going to talk with Claylan. Claylan's from District 5. Tell us a little bit about how you used to schedule your crews, Claylan.
We didn't.
Okay. Who scheduled them?
The storm would get in, and, well, as all maintenance people know, the storm would come in and it'd get a good snow floor going. And you would get a call about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning saying, "This is State Comm, can you come to work?" "Thank you a lot, we'll be there." So you crawl out of your nice warm bed, go get in a nice cold pickup and head to work. To be able to get into a nice cold snow plow and make circles all night long. So anyway, and we got a little bit on the tired side of that and was trying to come up with different ways. We started using mag chloride to pre-treat a little bit. As most of you know, mag chloride does not pre-treat a little bit, it pre-treats a lot and goes everywhere. We decided to go and use a straight salt application. We started using brine, building brine there in Pocatello, and would pre-treat with brine before the storm. But before that would happen, we would get onto the internet, look at where the storms were coming from, and try to guess what was going to happen. Wayne Curtis come up with the idea of, why don't we just start getting something going with the National Weather Service? So we started holding, I forget what it's called now, but anyway, meetings over the internet and telephone and so forth in District 5 with the people from the Weather Service conference call, that's the word. And anyway, they would do that on Monday morning, 9 o'clock, to tell us how things was going to be. And again on Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, and if we had a bad storm coming in, they would tell us extra, and we would have extra meetings with them. Well, we found that they were pretty accurate, but we had other ideas also, that we wanted to stay with our regular weather forecasters, TV, Weather Channel, and so forth. And then we would combine all this information together to build the schedule. We would make the schedule up, put it out on the email to the different operators and so forth, and tell them, you know, exactly when they were to be to work, instead of a 2 o'clock in the morning phone call when it's too late, when you've already got the snow floor there. We found that we were able to save a bunch of money this way, and we took that money that we were able to save when we were using just straight salt. Because we were using straight salt, we were able to take the money that we were saving from sand and put it into our summer projects. At the same time, we made it so that the foreman areas, such as Pocatello and then McCammon and American Falls and so forth, they're still there, but the boundary lines aren't, if you follow what I'm saying. It's now District 5 maintenance, Pocatello area. It's not Pocatello maintenance. We had a goal in the district of winter mobility at 55%. We hit 76% of scheduling by the storm. We had a goal, and this is a smaller number is better. We had a goal of 0.02 in the district, and of a storm index, and our goal that we met, instead of 0.20, we met 0.06. This is just some of our performance measures and so forth. And we done this all with a personnel complement of 151, where 2 years ago, we was at 162. So there's been different awards won and so forth, as has been mentioned today. Just looking through my notes to make sure. Anyway, we meet the storm now at the onset of it instead of on the snow floor. We've saved a bunch of money doing this way. We have basically, how can I put this? The District 5 organizational culture there, because of the way that we have changed, is moving from one of victims to victors.
That's great. Clayton, that's outstanding. I want to thank you very much for that. We got one more story to tell, and instead of having the guys who did it, we're asking Mike Pape to get up and do it. He's the head of the aeronautics division, and I think he's got a pretty interesting story here to tell. And when he gets done with it, we're gonna talk about it, because there's a really important lesson in there. So where is Mike? Mike, you ready to go?
Thanks,
okay.
Jim, and hello to everybody. And for those of you who I have not had the privilege to meet, I'm Mike Pape. I'm the Administrator, Division of Aeronautics, a relatively new supervisor over there. And I do have a story to tell you. If those of you who aren't familiar with aeronautics, we're a very small division. There's only 13 of us. What we do is make sure that we have an aviation system worthy of the state. 126 airports, well-funded, safe for pilots to arrive, that commerce keeps moving. So the airports are important. Pilot safety programs are important. Those backcountry airstrips that are world-renowned are well cared for. We also have a flight operation for the state. We have 3 airplanes, 2 small Cessnas that fly in the backcountry, and an all-weather King Air. This last year at performance review time, I was getting our people together, our schedulers and our pilots together, and I says, you know, the one thing you guys, I need you to know is that you got to be, one, safe, and two, you gotta be available. And I reminded them that hospitals spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep an airplane available for that to launch. I says, if we can do that, we're worth our weight in gold, folks. So be available if you can. Okay, that sounds fine, but 3 weeks ago, the airplane had to do its scheduled inspection. Takes 2 weeks. Every year, take the airplane all apart, pull off the props, take the gear off, pull out the inside, look at all the wiring, make sure everything's safe for the next year. And we did that. We told all of our passengers, all of our customers, sorry, we can't take care of you for 2 weeks. We'll take care of you after that. Well, on a Wednesday at 2 o'clock, the phone rang, and it rang in my office, unusually. They said, we need an airplane. I said, you can't have one. We're in inspection. Sorry, we need 3 more days to finish up. They didn't like my answer. I said, didn't the scheduler tell you we can't fly for another 3 days because it's inspection? Yeah, they said, but that's why we're calling you, because we heard you're the boss. They said, we got an issue. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, there's a boy for the health and welfare and 2 social workers. We've got to get a boy to the Denver hospital at noon, bar none. Okay, I see what we've got to do. And it's going to be very difficult, and I didn't have an answer. I told her, I'm going to get back to you shortly. Went into my movers and shakers of our division, 5 or 6 people, without an idea how we're going to handle this. And I told them, you guys, we've got a dragon to slay, and it's huge and it's mean, and I don't have the slightest idea what to do, but I need your help. The one thing that I learned from Dr. Tom is he said, I do not have to be the solution to every problem, which is a good thing because I didn't have the slightest idea how to handle this one. I brought my people together. I said, you guys, we've got to do something. I can think of 100 reasons why we cannot do this mission tomorrow morning, but I need you guys to come up with a dozen reasons why we can. I explained the situation. I explained where our social workers were at. I explained where the kid was at. I explained where the hospital had to be. We all put it together, and we determined that we had to do 6 hours. We had to do 3 days worth of maintenance work in 6 hours. Guys, I don't have an answer, but doggone it, we've got to get it done. So I put them together. I says, what can we do? And it was quiet for a little bit until our most introverted mechanic started speaking up with some ideas. He said, well, if you'd make me not do that job and I can concentrate on this, I could knock off 3 or 4 hours. I said, great. He says, if you can let me hire the other part-time mechanic from over at the Guard to come over for the afternoon, that would pick up about 4 or 5 hours. Another person says, well, I know where the pilots are on vacation and I can find them because they're gone. I said, great. Somebody suggested, well, if we just don't put the wheels on the airplane and land in the reservoirs, we wouldn't have to do that. I didn't think that was a good idea. But the creativity was there. We started rolling. We started picking up ideas. Everybody started pitching in. So people all took their jobs. The rest of us who didn't have jobs went into the hangar, and we were supervised by the introverted mechanic. I said, what can I do, Tim? He says, Mike, I need you to do the seats. Dan, I need you to do the carpet. This mechanic, I need you to do that there. And we doubled time for 5 straight hours. We found the pilots who were on vacation, who volunteered to come back. He called a part-time pilot who took a day off. And they come back in. They did a test flight at 7:30. At 8 o'clock, our airplane, even though it didn't have all the carpets in it and all the seats in it, was ready to fly. And we high-fived our mechanic and said, look at that, we did it. At 8 o'clock the next morning, an airplane took off with 2 social workers heading for Lewiston to pick up the boy, and they made it all the way to Denver. Right as the airplane was about ready to take off, one of the employees came in with 6 Subway sandwiches that they had purchased with their own dime because they knew they were going to be behind schedule, so that the crew and the passengers have something on the way, just because she wanted to help, which is real inspiring. That airplane came back late that night, and I got to send the email to everybody that says, a real attaboy, that was really something. You guys did something pretty doggone special. And I learned something as well through that endeavor. One, I learned that, no, I do not have to be the solution to every problem. I do not have to have all the answers. I have to ask the right questions. And I also learned that when you look at an employee and you believe in them and you show them, I think you can do it, it is amazing what an employee can do. Staff meeting this morning, right before I came out here, I told everybody, says, hey, I got to go tell our story. Tell them what we did, and they were pretty excited about it. I said, ITD is trying to be the best transportation organization in the country, and you guys, I think you can lead them to do it. Thanks for letting me tell the story.
It's a pretty cool story. Oops. Let's go back. Too many people hitting it. One more. Okay. At your tables, how does being constructive require trust and courage? Trust and courage. 2, 1. Let's bring it back to the big group, please. I really would like to hear a lot of feedback out of the tables. So we haven't heard from a couple of tables. What table would like to speak up? Tell us a little bit about how being constructive requires trust and courage.
For me, I think that being constructive is a process, so you have to trust the process. We were talking about some of the maintenance work that the guys at the table do, and if you're training a new person and they might not do the best at grading and other stuff, that it's trusting that by allowing people to try new things that it'll get better over time.
Okay, thanks. Courage. How does it take courage?
Well, I think it takes courage on both parts. It takes trust and courage from both parts. And the story that they told about the airplane, which was a really good story, by the way, it took courage for the leader to stand up and say, I don't have all the answers. And then it took him to trust his crew to bring him a solution, or at least an option for a solution. On the other side of that, it took courage for the most introverted mechanic to stand up and say, oh, I have an idea. I have a solution. But it also takes trust for him, trust in his manager, that he won't be shot down. Basically, when the manager asked the questions, he gave him permission to speak. And that's the only opportunity that he needed, was the permission to speak. And he came up with a great idea, and it worked. So, trust and courage, it's a two-way street. Both parties have to be able to have those desires or characteristics to complete the mission sometimes. And I think that's pretty important.
That piece of open, that open gets to be a bigger and bigger word, doesn't it? Okay? You have to be vulnerable as a leader to letting people bring stuff forward, try stuff, do stuff, ain't the way you maybe thought it ought to be done. Who else has some comments on that? Trust and courage. Who's got a little courage? We'll trust you. Was he right here? Right? Lady. Oh, Shannon. Okay.
I shared a story of courage for some of my staff at our table that I just wanted to share. And we have really struggled in technology with hiring staff. In the Boise area, the salaries for IT staff are it's just almost impossible for us to recruit at the level we need to support all of you. And so we were all commiserating, how we can do about how bad the world is, and and how HR never helps us, and and one of the staff raised their hands and said, you know what? That is not true anymore. They are our partners. They have recruited for us. They're in our interviewing process. And we need to quit, and they use the word tape, we need to quit playing that negative tape. They are here to help us. And we all got really quiet and said, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. They are our partners. And I think it was such a great example for me of someone who had courage to say, no, That's not how it is anymore at ITD. We are doing this together. And I've told that story to many of you. I told it to Brenda and I told it to Di, because I just thought it was such a great example of somebody having courage to say, no, that's not the way we do it anymore. So anyway, kudos to HR.
Terrific. Was it something I said? I turned it off. I turned it off. So, as leaders, yeah, maybe that's the sign I need to get off the stage. First of all, I'd like to have a little shout out to our storytellers. A little round of applause for all of them. You know, they talk about writing. They say it's easy to write, just sit in front of a keyboard and open your veins. It's easy to be a public speaker, just get up there and sweat bullets. Thanks to all of you for sharing those terrific stories. Trust and courage. The way we talk to ourselves. Dr. Tom spoke about this earlier. The way we think controls the way we act. As we start seeing actions, we have the chance, we are presented with thoughts all the time. ITD isn't helping us. HR isn't helping us. We can either give that sanction, and it becomes a part of our beliefs, and then all we ever see are the things that they're not doing, because that's a part of our belief system. We can shift that in the same way by looking for and seeing the things that they are doing well. Where is my opportunity to have an impact? Where can I step forward and help us do this? People, you've seen the information. We should be constructive. We have said what we want our culture to look like. What are we waiting for? If we start to act that way, we will start to get results. Those results present thoughts for people to say, this is different than it used to be. Is it different than it used to be? Do I get some positive bobblehead or negative bobblehead? Okay? All right, so so some people are doing this. So as Dr. Tom referred to, he said there are fence sitters out there. Well, who gets to influence the fence sitters? Those who influence the fence sitters get to win the game. It's up to you. If you want to influence people to go to a place that's more interesting, that solves problems, that's accountable, that takes credit for things got well done, you get to go and do that. And when you do it, the real performance shows up. People go, evaluate that. Geez, that was pretty interesting. I think we can do this. We can go there. Takes time. Do you have to fake it some until you make it? Absolutely. Okay? What courage did it take, Mike, to stand up and say, I don't have it. What do I need? What courage did it take Alan to stand up and say, you guys have told me I don't have it. What do you need? Do you have that courage? If you do, then you can go there. And when you do, others will see it and say, gee, that's kind of cool. I'd like to get on that train too. So this is a vicious spiral, or it's a virtuous spiral, depending upon how you use it. Culture and the individual The culture influences the individual. When we show up, we say, no, no, now we're going to teach you the way we really do things around here. Only you've decided what it is you want your culture to be like. All you have to do is go out and influence it and do it. There's an old saying, it's pretty easy. If it's to be, it's up to me. You are leaders. You have been asked to come and acquire some opportunities for new learning. Can you use this and go out and do something better? My thanks to Jay, the master of clicker technology, and a guy who helps see things very clearly. And my thanks to all of you for being here. I think we're about ready to break and go to lunch, are we not? Are there somebody who wants to take care of the housekeeping for that? You got it? Okay. Very good. Here, I'll give you this guy.